As the sun rose over the deserts of Nubia, the land shimmered in hues of gold and ochre. The kingdom of Kush stretched along the Nile, its cities alive with traders, artisans, and soldiers. Pyramids rose from the sands, not as mere tombs, but as symbols of power, faith, and ambition. It was in this world of grandeur and danger that Amani-Renez, the Kandake of Kush, ruled, a queen whose name would echo through the centuries. Born into a lineage of warrior rulers, Amani-Renez learned the art of strategy before she could even mount a horse. From childhood, she trained in archery, spear handling, and the subtle nuances of diplomacy. Nubian women of royal blood were not merely ornamental. They were trained to lead, to fight, to negotiate, and when necessary, to sacrifice. Amani-Renez embodied all these qualities and more. The Roman Empire, under Augustus, had conquered lands across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. They believed Nubia would fall like the rest. But Amani-Renez knew that true power came not from fear, but from unity. She summoned her generals and warriors to the royal hall of Meroe. There, surrounded by the echoing walls adorned with hieroglyphs of previous rulers, she laid out a plan not of surrender, but of bold resistance. According to historians, the Romans expected minimal opposition. They were used to lands surrendering at the mere sight of their legions. Yet Kushite forces, inspired by their queen, moved with precision and ferocity. They targeted Roman fortresses along the Nile, cutting supply lines, ambushing patrols, and striking when least expected. Amani-Renez herself led several raids, demonstrating her courage. Even when an arrow struck her in the eye, she pressed on, showing her soldiers that retreat was not an option. Life in the kingdom during these turbulent times was not easy. Citizens hid in homes, merchants worried for their wares, and farmers feared losing their harvests. Yet Amani-Renez ensured that the people of Kush remained resilient. She organized supply caravans, strengthened city walls, and even held ceremonies to honor the spirits of their ancestors, asking for protection and guidance in these perilous days. The battles were brutal. Desert sand became mixed with blood and dust. Spears and shields clashed under the scorching sun. And yet each engagement taught Amani-Renez more about Roman tactics, their strengths and their weaknesses. She adapted quickly, changing strategies overnight, sometimes negotiating truces with local Roman commanders only to strike again when the timing was perfect. Finally, after years of conflict, the Romans realized they could not break Kush. They agreed to a treaty that acknowledged the sovereignty of Amani-Renez and her people. Kush retained control over key territories, and the Romans withdrew in respect of the queen's power. It was a rare moment in history, an African kingdom standing undefeated before the mightiest empire in the world. Even in her later years, Amani-Renez continued to inspire her people. Statues, inscriptions, and oral stories spread of the one-eyed warrior queen who could match any man in skill and courage. Her story reminds us that leadership is not defined by gender, but wisdom, bravery, and resilience. Today, as we walk among the ruins of Meroe, we can almost hear the echoes of her commands, the rustling of her army, and the whispers of her people praising the queen who refused to bow. In the lush forests and winding rivers of 17th century Angola, a young princess was born who would become one of Africa's most cunning and fearless rulers. Her name was Nzinga Mbande, later known simply as Queen Nzinga. She was the daughter of Ngola Kilambo Kia Kasenda, the king of Ndongo, a kingdom rich with resources, culture, and warriors skilled in both diplomacy and battle. From an early age, Nzinga was trained in the arts of leadership, strategy, and negotiation. Her sharp mind and commanding presence set her apart, and it became clear she was destined for greatness. She observed the politics of her father's court closely, learning to navigate rivalries, alliances, and betrayals, skills that would serve her well against the greatest threat of her time, the Portuguese colonizers. The Portuguese were expanding their influence across the African coast, eager to control the lucrative trade in slaves, ivory, and other resources. They believed that no African kingdom could resist their might, yet Nzinga was not one to bow to invaders.
She took up her father's mantle after his death, and with extraordinary intelligence, she set about preserving the sovereignty of her people. One of her earliest challenges was negotiating with the Portuguese, who tried to undermine her authority by treating her with disrespect and seeking favorable trade agreements that would benefit only them. Nzinga, however, understood the power of symbolism. When the Portuguese sent an envoy to negotiate, she famously sat on a servant's back as a human chair, showing that she would not be intimidated and that power was not given, it was taken and commanded. Her diplomats and warriors watched in awe. Even her enemies were forced to respect her cunning and resolve. Nzinga's reign was not merely about diplomacy. She was a brilliant military strategist. She organized her armies into disciplined units, trained warriors in ambush tactics suited to the dense forests, and often led her forces personally into battle. Her campaigns against the Portuguese and their African allies were both daring and innovative, using knowledge of the terrain and surprise attacks to overcome superior weaponry. She understood that a queen's power came from both mind and body, intellect and courage. Life in Nzinga's kingdoms was shaped by her vision. She promoted the welfare of her people, secured trade routes, and built alliances with neighboring kingdoms. She adopted Christianity strategically, using it as a tool to strengthen diplomatic ties while maintaining her cultural authority and independence. She also welcomed and integrated runaway slaves into her armies and society, offering freedom and purpose to those abandoned by others. Despite facing betrayals, attempted assassinations, and overwhelming odds, Nzinga never wavered. Her court became a center of strategy, planning, and resistance, a place where stories of courage and cunning circulated among generals, diplomats, and citizens alike. Her fame spread across Africa and into Europe, where she was both feared and admired, a queen who defied expectations, a ruler who challenged the might of Portugal. In the end, Queen Nzinga's legacy was more than military victories. She demonstrated that leadership requires vision, resilience, and the ability to inspire loyalty in the hearts of people. She lived long enough to see her kingdom withstand colonization pressures, leaving behind a story that inspires generations even today. To imagine her presence is to envision a woman in regal attire, commanding a hall filled with warriors, strategists, and envoys. Her eyes gleam with intelligence. Her voice rings with authority. History may have tried to forget her, but her deeds whisper across time, reminding the world that courage and wisdom can rewrite the fate of nations, and that one woman can stand unbowed against the mightiest empires.
In the heart of what is now northern Nigeria, during the 16th century, a city-state called Zazzau thrived. It was a land of bustling markets, skilled artisans, and formidable warriors. Among its people, a princess was born who would grow to become one of the most legendary figures in West African history. Her name was Amina, daughter of King Nikitau. From childhood, she displayed extraordinary courage, intelligence, and an insatiable curiosity for leadership. Zazzau was a kingdom constantly under threat from rival city-states, raiders, and traders seeking to control commerce and territory. It required rulers who were both wise and fierce. Amina was trained in the art of war from a young age. She learned archery, swordsmanship, horseback riding, and military tactics. More importantly, she was taught diplomacy, the importance of alliances, and the delicate balance of fear and respect in leadership. As she matured, Amina's influence grew. Her strategic mind became evident when she successfully led small military campaigns as a young commander, expanding Zazzau's influence and gaining the loyalty of neighboring towns. Her father recognized her capabilities, and she was granted authority to oversee important political and military decisions, a rare position for a woman at the time. Amina's reign was marked by a series of ambitious military expansions.
She built a professional army composed of elite female warriors, known as the Amazon Corps, who trained alongside men, creating one of the most disciplined forces in the region. She also fortified cities by constructing walls, some of which still bear her name today, famously called Amina's Walls. These walls were not merely defensive structures, they were symbols of power, protection, and the city's unity under her leadership. Her campaigns extended Zizal's territory far beyond its original borders, incorporating new towns and securing trade routes. She was known for her audacity, often leading attacks personally on horseback, wielding a spear, her warriors following her into battle with unwavering loyalty. It is said that her presence on the battlefield inspired courage and fear in equal measure. Life under Queen Amina was one of discipline and prosperity. She encouraged trade, improved agricultural practices, and maintained law and order. The people of Zizal respected her not only for her military prowess, but also for her fairness and vision. Festivals, market days, and rituals continued alongside military campaigns, ensuring that culture and tradition thrived even during times of war. Her story was passed down through oral history, poems, and songs. She became an icon of strength, resilience, and female leadership in a patriarchal society. Queen Amina's name traveled far beyond her kingdom, inspiring legends that would endure for centuries. Travelers, merchants, and chroniclers spoke of her as a ruler who combined the ferocity of a warrior with the wisdom of a queen. To envision Queen Amina is to see a formidable figure astride a horse, spear in hand, eyes scanning the horizon, always alert, always commanding. Her legacy reminds us that courage, strategy, and leadership are not defined by gender. In the annals of history, she stands tall as a symbol of determination and empowerment, a queen whose story refuses to be forgotten.
At the turn of the 20th century, in the lush forests of the Ashanti Empire in modern-day Ghana, a queen rose whose courage would challenge one of the most powerful empires of the world, the British Empire. Her name was Yaa Asantewaa, a woman whose determination and bravery became legendary, a symbol of resistance and national pride. The Ashanti Empire had thrived for centuries, with a strong military, rich culture, and complex political system. By 1900, the British had steadily encroached upon Ashanti lands, seeking control over resources, trade, and political authority. When the British demanded the golden stool, the sacred symbol of Ashanti unity and power, it was an insult that could not be ignored. At that moment, the Ashanti king and chiefs were hesitant, unable to organize resistance effectively. But Yaa Asantewaa, then a respected elder and queen mother, stepped forward. She delivered a speech that would echo through history. She called upon the Ashanti people to rise, reminding them that a nation without courage would cease to exist. Her words ignited a spark of rebellion. Yaa Asantewaa took command of the Ashanti forces, demonstrating not only leadership but also strategic brilliance. She organized warriors, set defensive positions, and prepared for a siege against the well-armed British forces. Her knowledge of the terrain, the forests, and the river systems gave the Ashanti armies a significant advantage, allowing them to execute ambushes and strategic retreats when necessary. The British, confident in their technological superiority, were surprised by the resilience, intelligence, and coordination of the Ashanti army. Yaa Asantewaa maintained morale through personal example. She visited the front lines, encouraged the soldiers, and even participated in planning attacks. She understood that leadership was as much about presence and inspiration as it was about strategy. Life during the war was harsh. Ashanti families faced shortages of food, disease, and constant fear. Yet, Yaa Asantewaa ensured that the people remained organized and hopeful. She established communication lines, coordinated supplies, and maintained the cultural and spiritual practices that bound her people together. Rituals, prayers, and storytelling reinforced unity and courage among the Ashanti. Despite overwhelming odds, the Ashanti army held out for months, defending their land and sacred symbols. Ya Ashantewa's leadership forced the British to engage in protracted negotiations, showing that even an empire could not easily suppress the will of a united and determined people. Even today, in Ghana, monuments, schools, and festivals honor her legacy, ensuring that the warrior queen who defended her people against imperial forces is never forgotten.